My student, Tyler Greenlee, is examining the departure of big game fishing north of Maine. So.
Thank you, Nate. Hello, I'm Tyler Greenlee. I am a student at SSI, and for my project, I am examining why fish populations in the Atlantic Ocean are declining. Today, I will tell you the reasons why fish are declining. I will also tell you about how the disappearance of fish affects the ecosystem, and I will talk about how fish are keystone species. I will tell you about the affected species in the ecosystem, and then we will have our conclusion, and finally our acknowledgement. The reasons why fish are over-declining. The main reason that I have found why fish are declining is overfishing. New fishing technologies such as longline, deep-sea fishing, and factory boats are causing the fishing industry to have a bigger harvest of fish. Longlines are more efficient at catching large amounts of fish. They also target more species because of the bait. Also, species that weren't originally affected by overfishing are now being affected. For example, deep sea fishing. Species that remain too deep to be fished are now being fished. Also, there is a trend in the fishing industry that we see, in which the fishing industry starts fishing the large species of fish in a certain area. And as they proceed, they continue to move smaller and smaller down in size of the fish because the large fish are beginning to disappear. And so eventually, the fishing industry is fishing all the fish in an ecosystem. This is a YouTube video which helps you better understand the effects of overfishing.
Over 3/4 of our planet is covered by oceans, containing 80% of life on Earth. Overfishing leads to overall degradation of the ocean system. Fish and fleas are larger than eating. Unpleasant fishing processes cause tremendous destruction. Bycatching and bottom leads to collapse of the ocean ecosystem and loss of a valuable food source. A Dalhousie University study shows that seafood may disappear by 2048. However, reversing the destruction may only take a decade. How can you help? Make sure you know what you eat. Pick the fish with the lowest impact. Spread the word to your friends. Be informed. Overfishing is triggered by global demand. Lowering the demand will lower the damage. We need to act now before total destruction.
And so that video just tells you how there are more fishing boats on the ocean than needed, and that fishing populations are being greatly reduced. It also tells you about how you can help impact overfishing by not eating the fish that has the greatest effect on the ecosystem. Other reasons for decline. A significant reason for fish decline in the Atlantic Ocean is pollution. Biotoxins such as DDT are toxins made by organisms. For example, when the ocean is artificially fertilized by runoff from irrigation, algae and other plankton are creating biotoxins which poison the environment. Animals that are on the top of the food chain, such as marine mammals and large fish species, are being poisoned because shellfish and crustaceans are consuming these poisons and therefore becoming poisonous themselves. That's why in Florida, you can no longer fish and collect your own shellfish like oysters. Also, plastic waste is has a very big impact on the decline of the ocean fish. 90% of this plastic waste comes from the lake. when the plastic enters the ocean, it follows the current and it collects together in these huge mounds. These mounds obstruct light and affect photosynthesis in algae. Also, after being exposed to the sun in the ocean for about 6 months, the plastic begins to break down. It breaks down into sizes from about the size of a quarter to a pinhead, and these can fill the ocean for miles, and they once again obstruct the light, obscuring photosynthesis, and they also affect the reproduction of planktonic animals. Fish also, when they breathe or when they suck in water to respirate, they may suck in these small particles of plastic, which then destroy their gill filaments and also kill them. Because this plastic is killing the base of the food chain, algae and plankton, it's affecting the entire ecosystem because they are a risk to the food chain. Other toxins also affect the ocean, such as pesticides and herbicides. These pesticides and herbicides cause great algae blooms, and these algae blooms deplete the oxygen in the ocean. The third largest reason that I found fish populations are declining is climate change. Global warming is being caused by CO2 emissions, and this has been going on since the Industrial Revolution. Ice caps in the North Atlantic help regulate the ocean temperature, cooling the water. These fish use the temperature in the water to tell when to spawn. For example, Atlantic salmon, they use the warming temperatures of the water to tell when to swim to the rivers in which they spawn. Also, because of the CO2 emissions, the CO2 from these emissions are leaking into the ocean, and it's causing the pH in the ocean to lower, acidifying it. And this is causing coral to bleach. As you can see here, this is a bleached coral. And basically what coral bleaching is when the acid water kills the pollen in the coral, and all that's left is the skeleton of the coral, and that's why they're pure white. Also, ocean acidification is causing calcium carbonate and nutrients to dissolve from the water and the soil in the water at the bottom of the ocean. Calcium carbonate is a main product that shellfish and mollusks use to build their shells. So oftentimes you can tell when the ocean is acidified because the shells of mollusks will have a pearly white sheen to them. And that's because their shells are dissolving in the water. Also, zooplankton that use silicon in their shells are also dissolving in the tear and making from the acid. And since zooplankton form a base in the food chain, then the food chain can potentially collapse. This is a timeline that shows how the ocean has gradually acidified. So at the beginning of the time web, we see the ice age, the Pleistocene ice age, and at that time it had a stable pH of about 8.2. As we look at the timeline, this pH has remained stable until we come to the Industrial Revolution, in which CO2 emissions begun. If you look at the bottom of the ocean, you can see a rich amount of life. However, as soon as the Industrial Revolution begins, we begin to see decline in sponges and in corals. Sponges are indicator species, and when they start dying, then usually that means something bad is happening to the ocean. The acid water destroys the filaments that they use to filter the water. Also, it's estimated that by 2100, the ocean acidity will have reached a pH of 7.8, potentially killing all the plankton and algae in the water, and as a result, collapsing the entire ecosystem. So what's happening to our ecosystem? Keystone species are now dying and disappearing because of this. And keystone species are essential for keeping the balance in the ecosystem. Fish are a major keystone species, both large fish and small fish. Small fish provide food for larger animals, and large fish control the populations of secondary predators. Now, this is an animation that models a healthy ecosystem. We have the primary predators, the secondary predators, the primary consumers, and the primary producers. The top predators prey on the secondary predators, which in turn prey on the primary consumers. The primary consumers prey on then the primary producers, and then all the organisms reproduce to replace those lost by predation. Now, this is an example of an unhealthy ecosystem in which the large fish have been either fished out or have died of pollution. The secondary predators are now not being controlled by the main predators and begin to form a den in the ecosystem. And then, as the process continues, we begin seeing their population explode. And then they really start killing off the fish. And then finally, they begin to die because now there is no longer enough prey to keep them alive. Finally, the remaining secondary predators that have managed to survive consume the remaining fish population. And then because there's no more prey, they in turn disappear. The plankton are then left to reproduce uncontrolled until they dissolve all the oxygen in the water and also die. Conclusion. The threat we see facing our fish is a threat we see to all of our world water and the wildlife that lives in them. We depend on the ocean for more than just food. Algae in the ocean produce about 60% of our oxygen in our atmosphere. And so a collapse in the food chain would mean that 60% of our air of the oxygen in our atmosphere would disappear. We need to protect the oceans for our future and for the planet's future. I would like to thank my sponsors, the Alex Ford Foundation and the Fake It Family Foundation, for sponsoring my experience at SSI. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate it. It has been a most wonderful experience. And if I could, I would definitely come back next year and redo the whole thing. I would like to thank my advisor, mentor, and instructor, Nick Florianopoulos. Nick has been an awesome person. He has stuck with me through thick and thin. Oftentimes he would email me at like 1 in the morning, and so I knew he would be working really hard on papers and stuff. And he's just one of those people who will really work hard for you so that you can achieve what you're trying to work on. I would like to thank our program director, Lori K. Ball. Lori is just amazing. She directs everything and organizes, and this program could not be possible without her. And so I think we should all give her a round of applause. Thank you, Lori. And I would like to thank all of our staff members. Our RAs are perfect role models for us, and I appreciate it. And I appreciate them so much. And of course, the office staff are awesome too. I would also like to thank my parents for giving me up for 6 weeks and for paying for my adventure. And these are my references for my project. Are there any questions? Dylan.
So you talk about being major declining fish. What type of fish are you seeing the greatest decline?
Okay, the question was, what fish are we seeing major declines in? The fish that we are seeing major declines in right now are mainly large fishes such as shellfish and tuna and marlin. That is because the public wants to eat them, and there's a high demand for them. However, as they disappear, so do the smaller fishes, because the fishing industry can no longer find these fish because they're disappearing, and so they are working down the food chain, catching smaller and smaller fish. Nick?
So the video says that I watched the fishery. I watched the most because I like fishery.
Probably the fish that reproduce really rapidly. Mainly medium-sized fish, like groupers and sea bass. They are also endangered, but they have the least effect on the ecosystem. Small fish like herring and sardines, they provide a large amount of food for the ecosystem, and they also control the population of smaller organisms. And the large fish also control the population of secondary predators. An example of the primary predator controlling the secondary predator is in the Chesapeake Bay. In the Chesapeake Bay, sharks have been completely fish that. And so now we're seeing skates and rays populations expand and grow uncontrollably. And they are consuming the shellfish and crustaceans. And any organisms that depend on those shellfish and crustaceans are turned down. And so we potentially see a flat ecosystem at work. Scarlett?
I've heard of people using farms like fish. You know, there's fish that comes in their value, and is that going to become more popular, like using that fish farms, or you know?
Well, I don't know the exact percentage, but I do know that it's in between 10 and 20% of the fish that we consume comes from fisheries. For example, like in the story, sometimes you see salmon farm raised. It is really helpful, and as fish disappear in the ocean, I predict that, yes, we will start seeing more farm-raised fish. Also, like in the video, when they were talking about looking for fish that do not affect the ecosystem, if you eat farm-raised fish instead of wild-caught fish, then you can stop the overfishing trend. And also you would support farm-raised fish, and that way it would just help the whole conversation. Chip?
Going off of that farmers, like I know that there's a big kind of like eating more organic food. Wouldn't you see people starting to go away from farm raised because they would want like free ocean raised, I don't know, something like that. Like, how do you?
So the question was, wouldn't people tend to want to eat more wild fish because they would assume it's healthier? The thing is that wild caught fish, there's no organic wild caught fish because of the pollution. The herbicides and pesticides are coming into the ocean, and the biological, just basically all fish in the ocean are not organic. However, fish in fisheries, I have heard of fisheries that are now not feeding their fish steroids and other growth hormones and such, and making them organic. But yes, most fishing farm-raised fish are not organic, and so basically there's no organic fish in the Adam?
So when you were talking about how farmers, they raise their fish with steroids, do you know of the environmental risk if some of these steroid-fed fish would be released into the water?
Okay, now this sort of goes, the question was, what happens if one of those steroid-raised fish go into the ecosystem? The fish that are being injected with these steroids is not genetic, and so their genes, they don't have a gene for being large, it's just a steroid. It's like if you give me steroids and I go big, it doesn't mean I have a big gene, and so it's not like I would pass it on. Akshay?
Could you just really briefly explain a little bit more of what happens when,
Okay, so the question was, Akshay was wondering what would happen to the ocean if it reached a pH of 7.8. Basically, the ocean, as it became more acidic, would continue to dissolve nutrients, making the making the oceans less rich and making it harder for algae and seaweed to grow, and also for other organisms to live. The pH would actually begin to dissolve, like once I said, the shells of the zooplankton, which are algae-based creatures, who do photosynthesis, and they form the base of the region. Once you take out those zooplankton, then the plankton dies, and then the animals that feed on the plankton die, and then it just continues up the food chain, and basically the entire food chain is alive. Thank you again.
I'm Karen, this is Charlie, and thank you, Tyler, for a wonderful presentation, and that concludes our this year's formal presentation.
You guys all did a great job, and we just want to say congratulations on getting through them. You guys all did excellent, and congratulations.
Woo!